My name is Mason Avery. I'm 23 years old, and I recently made headlines as one of the youngest entrepreneurs to ever sign a multi-million-dollar tech deal with a Fortune 500 financial firm. You'd think my family would be proud. But where I come from, being successful doesn't mean your name is in the news, it means your hands are rough and your shirt is soaked in sweat by noon. I'm from Rosedale, Georgia. Small-town America, where every man seems to own a pickup truck, and success is measured in acreage or the weight of steel you can lift. My dad, Hank Avery, has been running Avery & Sons Concrete since before I was born. He built his business with his bare hands, one driveway and sidewalk at a time. He was respected in our town, hell, revered. I wasn't. When I was 8, I told my father I wanted to be an inventor. He laughed, handed me a wrench, and told me to invent a way to fix that busted wheelbarrow. That was how it always was. Practicality over possibility. If you weren't sweating, you weren't working. I spent every summer from the age of 11 working for him. Mixing concrete, hauling tools, patching driveways in 100-degree heat. He said it would build character. What it built was resolve to never be trapped in a life I didn't choose. In high school, while most kids were lifting weights or tuning engines, I was teaching myself Python on an old laptop I bought with saved lunch money. I spent nights debugging code and watching online lectures, using the town library's spotty Wi-Fi when hours cut out. My father called it playing with gadgets. I called it my future. When I got accepted into Georgia Tech's School of Computational Finance, my mom hugged me like I'd won the lottery. My dad grunted and slid me a folded-up $50 bill like I was heading to some summer camp. For gas and burgers, he said. That was his version of a farewell. It wasn't that he didn't care. It's just that he didn't understand. Freshman year, I kept my head down. I wasn't a social guy, I didn't rush a frat, didn't go to parties. I lived on the cheap, took side jobs fixing student laptops, and spent hours developing a basic algorithm to track regional market fluctuations. It started as an idea in an economics class, something most students would forget by the next exam. But I didn't forget. Sophomore year, I took it further. Refined it. Added historical trend data. Built a prediction model. It worked better than I expected. When my professor reviewed it, he stared at me like he was seeing something strange. "This isn't just good," he said. "This is disruptive." I didn't sleep that night. That weekend, I called home. My mom was excited, telling me she was printing off my Dean's List email to put on the fridge. My dad? He asked if I remembered how to mix a decent sidewalk blend. "I'm building something," I told him. "Build something useful," he said, then hung up. I dropped out the next semester. It wasn't some dramatic decision, I wasn't failing. I just realized that the algorithm had legs, and school was slowing me down. I moved into a 400-square-foot apartment in Decatur with 2 guys who worked in HVAC and delivered pizza. I coded during the day, Ubered at night, and lived off peanut butter sandwiches and off-brand energy drinks. Rejection became a daily ritual. I pitched my idea to over 40 venture capital firms. Some ignored me. Others politely declined. The feedback was always the same: too young. Not seasoned enough. Impressive tech, but no proven leadership. One even suggested I bring on an older co-founder to look more legitimate. I didn't. Instead, I printed out every rejection email and taped it to the wall behind my desk. Not as motivation. As memory. Each one was a person who didn't believe I belonged. Only one person outside of my roommates really believed in me, my best friend from high school, Darius. Darius was everything I wasn't: smooth, outgoing, effortlessly charming. He didn't understand my code, but he understood me. When I skipped meals, he brought me food. When I missed a pitch meeting because I fell asleep at my desk, he called and screamed at me like a furious mother. "You're going to change everything one day," he said once. "Just don't forget who believed in you before the checks cleared." By 23, I'd refined the algorithm into something I named Helix Trend. It didn't just analyze market shifts, it anticipated them. It was still raw, still in need of scale, but it caught the eye of one firm. A big one. Brightwell Equity Partners. They flew me out to New York. I wore the one decent blazer I owned, bought secondhand and too tight at the shoulders. I shook hands with people whose shoes cost more than my entire wardrobe. But they didn't laugh at my age. They didn't dismiss my experience. They listened. 3 days later, I was offered $12.5 million for a licensing agreement. I said yes. The moment the deal was finalized, I sat in my hotel room, phone in hand, wondering who to call. I dialed Darius first. He screamed so loud, The concierge called to check if everything was okay. Then I called my mom. She subbed into the phone, telling me she always knew. I didn't call my father. I didn't want congratulations laced with disbelief. I didn't want another reminder that he never saw me. A week later, I bought a car, not just any car. A cobalt blue Aston Martin Vantage. I didn't buy it for speed. I didn't even buy it because I liked cars. I bought it because no one in Rosedale would mistake it for luck. Memorial Day came around. I knew what that meant, my dad's annual customer appreciation barbecue. He invited clients, family, every contractor he'd ever worked with. It was his way of showing them the empire he'd built. I hadn't been home in over a year. This time, I didn't call ahead. The drive back to Rosedale was quieter than I expected. The engine of the Aston Martin purred like it was barely awake, the opposite of the roaring diesel trucks that lined the roads of my hometown. As I neared the turnoff for Avery Road, the one named after our family because my grandfather poured most of the sidewalks on that street, my hands tensed on the wheel. I wasn't nervous. I was focused. My father's Memorial Day barbecue was the social event of the season, at least in our corner of Georgia. He'd hold court at the center of the yard, flipping burgers with a cigarette clenched in his teeth, surrounded by local business owners who called him the last of the real ones. Every year he'd tell the same stories about pouring concrete in the rain, or how young bucks don't know the difference between hard work and a YouTube tutorial. I'd never been part of those stories. Not really. I pulled up at exactly 2 p.m., right on schedule. People were already spilling out onto the lawn, beer in hand, folding chairs set up in semicircles. Kids ran around barefoot, and the smell of charcoal hung thick in the summer air. Then came the engine. The unmistakable, low growl of a machine made for coastal highways, not county roads. Heads turned before I even came into view. I parked next to Dad's Ford F-250, the one with custom racks and mud-crusted tires. The contrast couldn't have been sharper, American grit versus European precision. I stepped out wearing jeans and a simple white button-down. No flash. Just presence. The crowd went still for a beat, like the town had blinked. My mom was the first to react. She covered her mouth with her hands, eyes wide with surprise and something else, relief, maybe. She rushed forward before stopping herself halfway, glancing toward my father like she needed permission to be proud. My dad stood by the grill, spatula in hand. He didn't smile. Didn't scowl either. Just squinted, like he couldn't quite make sense of what he was seeing. "Well," he said loudly, forcing a grin for the audience. "Look what the cat dragged in." There were a few chuckles. I gave a small nod. "Sorry I'm late. Traffic from Atlanta was brutal." "You drive that thing in traffic?" he asked, eyes drifting back to the car. "Bet it cost more than my first house." "It did," I said quietly. "Twice." That got a few more laughs. I wasn't here for laughs. I spent the afternoon trying to talk to him. I'd approach as he was restocking the cooler or refilling the condiment trays. "How's work going?" I asked once, genuinely curious. "Busy," he grunted. "You wouldn't understand." When I tried to explain the Helix Trend deal, how it could potentially change the way small investors accessed market data, he cut me off mid-sentence. "Tell me something useful," he said. "Like how to get concrete to cure faster in this humidity." He didn't want to understand. He didn't even want to try. His business partner, Rick, approached me near the garage. "Heard about your deal," he said. "Pretty damn impressive." "Thanks," I said, unsure if it was genuine. "Your dad doesn't say much, but he's watching," Rick continued. "That man's stubborn, but he ain't blind." I wasn't so sure. Later, I overheard Rick asking my dad, "Why didn't you tell me Mason was in the Wall Street Journal?" My father shrugged. "You know how those papers are. They'll print anything with a good headline." That stung more than it should have. As the sun began to set and the crowd thinned, I found my father in his office, really just a converted tool shed with a fan and a file cabinet. He was hunched over invoices, pen in hand. "Dad," I said. He didn't look up. "I need to talk to you. About the business. About my company." "There's nothing to talk about," he said flatly. "You don't even know what I'm building." "I know enough." "You don't know anything," I snapped. "You never asked." He finally looked up. His eyes weren't angry. They were tired. "I know that money doesn't last," he said. "I know people like you get chewed up and spit out by those big firms. I know you can't build something real sitting in front of a computer all day." My jaw clenched. $12.5 million says otherwise. He leaned back, folding his arms. "You think that money makes you a man? You think it replaces calluses and sunrise shifts? I shook my head. No. But I think it means I was right to bet on myself. Silence. I didn't come here to rub it in, I continued. I came here because I thought. Maybe now you'd want to understand. He turned back to his papers. Close the door on your way out. In the kitchen, my mom was loading dishes into the sink. She turned when she saw me. He's proud of you, she said softly. He just doesn't know how to say it. I looked at her, then at the window, where the last orange light of the day stretched over the gravel lot. No, Mom. He's not proud. He's scared. She paused, her hands still in the sink. Scared? Scared that I didn't need him to succeed. Scared that I found a way forward without carrying concrete. The next morning, I woke up to a text from my cousin Lexi. Uncle Hank told the guys at the diner you faked the whole thing. Said you rented that car and the Wall Street story was exaggerated PR crap. I didn't reply. Another text came in. Darius. Dude, your dad just stopped by my place asking questions about your business. Weird vibes, man. Then a third, from my mom. Don't be mad, but your father's been struggling. The company's not doing well. He just doesn't want you to see him like this. I stared at the messages, one after another, until they blurred into a single truth. This wasn't about me. This was about him. His business was failing. His legacy slipping through his fingers. And I, his only son, had built something completely alien to his world, in a language he couldn't speak. To him, my success wasn't just unfamiliar. It was a threat. But I wasn't here to destroy his pride. I was here to save what mattered. And the only way to do that was by outbuilding him, not outshining him. I didn't return my father's calls the next few days, not because I was angry, but because I was busy turning everything he feared into something that could save him. The idea had come to me halfway through the drive back to my hotel that night. If he wouldn't ask for help, I'd find a way to offer it without bruising the one thing he valued more than legacy, his pride. First, I made a call to Olivia Ward, one of the senior partners at Brightwell Equity. She'd championed my Helix Trend deal. Her voice was cool, efficient, but I could tell she was intrigued when I asked for a private consultation, on a different kind of acquisition. Concrete? She asked. That's not really your lane. It is now, I said. We scheduled a call for Monday morning. In the meantime, I dug into the local landscaping and concrete businesses around Rosedale and the surrounding counties. There were dozens, some mom and pop, some mid-sized with multiple trucks. I paid special attention to the three biggest ones. Two were clearly expanding, snapping up smaller outfits, rebranding them with shiny trucks and optimized scheduling apps. The third was Greenside Industries, quietly dominant, methodical, and hungry for market share. They'd already made a play for Avery & Sons Concrete. My father had refused. Now it was my turn to reopen that door. By Wednesday, I had a lunch meeting scheduled with Nathan Briggs, Greenside's founder and CEO. He was a wiry man in his early 50s with a military buzzcut and the kind of handshake that hurt. "You're Hank's boy," he said, sitting across from me at a steakhouse outside Macon. "Didn't think you two were close." "We're not," I said. "But I'm here on business." I laid out what I knew, my father's financial situation, the pending equipment loans, the declining contracts. I didn't sugarcoat it, and Briggs appreciated that. "Why now?" he asked. "We made an offer 2 years ago." He practically spat on it. "Because now, he won't have a choice. But I want it done right." I offered a plan. Greenside would acquire Avery & Sons for $1.2 million, twice what it was worth on paper, on the condition that Hank Avery stayed on as a regional operations manager. No layoffs. No broken contracts. A seamless transition that preserved the name and legacy. Briggs leaned back, impressed. "And why do you care?" "Because I can't let the man who taught me the meaning of grit lose everything he built." With the deal in motion, I found a warehouse space in downtown Rosedale, 15,000 square feet, formerly a textile mill. I signed the lease, not just for a headquarters, but for a future. Horizon Analytics, my company, was coming home. I wanted the building to symbolize what could happen when tradition and tech stopped fighting and started collaborating. That same day, I promoted my cousin Lexi to Chief of Operations. She was freshly out of grad school, green but hungry. And she had one thing most people didn't: she believed in me before there was a reason to. "You sure?" she asked when I offered. "I'm sure," I said. "You've got the heart. The rest, we'll learn together." I still hadn't called my father. But word traveled fast. I heard from Darius that my dad was fuming. He called me a Wall Street traitor in front of his crew. Said I was coming for his business like a vulture. The hypocrisy didn't even sting anymore. Then came the church rumors. Lexi called me late one night, voice shaking with frustration. He told the congregation that you're trying to shame him into retirement. That you forged paperwork to steal the company. That hit harder than anything he'd ever said to my face. Because now, it wasn't just disappointment. It was war. Still, I didn't flinch. Instead, I walked into his office 3 days later, without an invitation, without warning. He looked up, startled, then suspicious. "You've got nerve," he said. I placed a manila folder on his desk. He didn't open it. Just glared. "I've arranged for a sale to Greenside," I said. "Fair market value, with bonuses. They'll keep your name, your crew, even your office. You stay on as a regional manager. You control your people. No one gets fired." He finally opened the folder. "Read through the figures." His jaw tensed. "This some kind of power play?" he asked. "You think you're better than me now?" "No," I said. "I think you're a builder. And I think your hands are worth more than your ego will let you admit." He threw the folder onto the desk. "I don't need your handouts. It's not a handout. It's a lifeline. Take it or don't. But if you wait too long, the offer goes to your competition, and they won't be half as respectful." I reached into my jacket and pulled out a small black box. "Also, this." I opened it and placed the key to my Aston Martin on his desk. He blinked. "What the hell is this?" "A symbol," I said. "Of what's possible when we stop pretending one way of working is better than another." He stared at it like it might bite. "I don't want your charity." "It's not charity," I said. "It's an advance." "Advance for what?" "For being part of what I'm building next." I left him there, speechless, and didn't look back. The next morning, my mom texted me. "Your father took the car out for a drive this morning. Didn't say a word. Just drove." And that evening, Greenside called to say the contract had been signed. My father hadn't said a word to me. But he didn't need to. For the first time, his silence meant agreement. That weekend, I sat in the bare office space of the future Horizon Analytics HQ, blueprints spread across the table, white walls echoing with possibility. Outside, trucks from the leasing company were delivering equipment, desks, paint. Darius and Lexi were arguing about layout. My name was already on the lease, the tax filings submitted, the first 5 hires onboarded. I looked down at my open laptop. The logo blinked back at me, clean, sharp, modern. Horizon Analytics. Bridging legacy with innovation. And I smiled. Because for the first time, I wasn't trying to prove myself to anyone. I was just building. The morning of Horizon Analytics' official launch was unseasonably warm for October. The warehouse-turned-headquarters gleamed under the Carolina sun, transformed from an abandoned husk into a breathing, modern hub. Floor-to-ceiling glass lined the front wall, clean steel beams arched overhead, and rows of desks buzzed with early energy from our new hires, local graduates, developers, analysts, and a few ex-contractors from my father's company retrained as logistics coordinators. The place didn't just look like progress. It felt like a second chance. At 9 a.m., the ribbon-cutting began. A crowd of about 200 gathered, reporters from the Charleston Business Ledger, a few venture capitalists Olivia had invited, our team members, local business leaders, my mom and Lexi standing proudly near the front. And at the very back, next to the last column, wearing his best button-up and an unfamiliar uncertainty in his posture, stood my father. He hadn't RSVP'd. He hadn't texted. But he showed up. And he didn't leave. I stepped up to the mic, the Horizon logo beaming behind me on a digital screen. My voice was steady, but my fingers tightened on the podium. "Thank you all for being here," I began. Horizon Analytics was born in a cramped apartment on a borrowed laptop, powered by more rejection emails than I care to count. But today, we open our doors as something bigger than code. We're building a bridge, between data and instinct, between innovation and tradition. There was polite applause. I nodded, then smiled. And today, I'm proud to announce Horizon's first major partnership, an investment of $2 million into Greenside Regional Holdings, the new parent company overseeing multiple service sector businesses across South Carolina, including, I let the words hang for just a moment, the former Avery & Sons Concrete. Gasps. Whispers. Even a few chuckles. In the back, my father's head snapped up. I went on. As part of this partnership, Horizon is launching a pilot program called TradeTrack, technology designed to help traditional businesses streamline operations, forecast material costs, and increase profit margins without sacrificing what makes them essential, their people. I glanced directly at my father. And leading this program is our new Director of Traditional Industries. Is Mr. Nathan Avery. Applause erupted, awkward at first, then earnest. My dad didn't move. Didn't smile. But he didn't walk out either. That was enough. After the ceremony, people swarmed the space, taking photos, exchanging cards, touring the workspace. My mom pulled me into a hug, her eyes red-rimmed with emotion. He's speechless, she whispered. Which, as you know, never happens. I gave her a small grin. I figured if he couldn't say it, I'd show him. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw my father walking toward me. His steps were slow, measured, like someone approaching the edge of a cliff, not sure what came next. We stood face to face for the first time in weeks. You planned this, he said. It wasn't a question. I nodded. Yeah. Everything. The deal. The job. The speech. Yeah, I repeated. Because you were never going to come to me. So I brought it to you. He looked around the space, at the people rushing to set up new terminals, at the enormous steel sign that read Horizon Analytics above the entrance. You didn't name it after yourself, he said quietly. Neither did you, I replied. But everyone still knew who built it. He looked at me differently then. Not like a challenge to his legacy. But like a man seeing a mirror and not hating what was reflected. He reached out, calloused hand firm, and shook mine. I sold the car, he said abruptly. Wasn't my style. Used the money to buy a new fleet truck. The rest. He hesitated. Put it into your company's stock. I blinked. You did? His voice softened just enough to surprise me. Figured it was time I stopped betting against you. In the months that followed, the partnership between Horizon and Greenside flourished. My dad, now rebranded as Director Nate by the younger staff, led weekly workshops where he taught tech interns how to read blueprints, estimate materials, and manage crews without burning out. He never touched a line of code. Never sat through strategy meetings. But when he spoke, people listened. He'd walk the halls with a mug of gas station coffee, grumbling about AI models while secretly helping the UX team design features that made sense for folks with gloves on. He wasn't just useful. He was necessary. One afternoon, about 6 months after launch, my dad stopped by my office unannounced. He set down a binder, thick, worn, full of papers in his messy all-caps handwriting. What's this? I asked. Every lesson I've learned in 40 years, he said. Crew management. Weather prep. Customer retention. It ain't pretty, but it's real. I flipped through it, scanning notes about soil hardness and concrete mix ratios for extreme humidity. This is incredible, I said. Use it, he said. Don't just store it on a shelf. I nodded. Then he added, you know, I used to think computers were the enemy. But now I get it. They're just the tools. Still gotta know how to build. That moment hit harder than any check or article or deal I'd ever signed. Because that was the first time I didn't feel like I had to prove anything. My mom quit her teaching job and booked a flight to Tuscany. Her dream. My father went with her, begrudgingly at first, until he sent me a photo of him in a pasta-making class, apron and all. I look like a fool, he texted. You look like a man finally living, I replied. Darius came on board as Horizon's marketing director. Lexi ran our daily operations like a general with a clipboard. We hired 30 new grads from the state's university pipeline, creating a bridge between big city opportunity and small town roots. At our 1-year anniversary party, we unveiled a new plaque in the lobby. Respect the past. Build the future. Below it was a line my father had scribbled during a team meeting that we later made our unofficial motto. Never forget whose shoulders you stand on. That night, as I walked out to the parking lot, I noticed something that made me laugh out loud. Parked beside my black sedan was a new truck, sleek, spotless, with the Greenside logo and one addition. A small sticker on the rear bumper that read, "Proud Dad." Maybe he hadn't said it out loud. But he'd finally said it. 6 months after our 1-year anniversary, Horizon Analytics was no longer a scrappy startup. We were a known player, especially in the Southeast. 3 of our trade track pilot programs had launched in other industries: plumbing, HVAC, small-scale agriculture. All led by former blue-collar professionals working hand-in-hand with engineers, coders, and financial analysts. We weren't just building software. We were redefining what innovation looked like in towns like Rosedale. And we were doing it by including the very people that tech usually forgot. People like my dad. My father and I never sat down and had some big heart-to-heart. That wasn't how we worked. But we had our rhythm now, weekly meetings about the traditional industries division. Sometimes we disagreed. Sometimes he'd roll his eyes when I used phrases like UX mapping or predictive heuristics. But he listened. And so did I. One morning, he brought in a retired electrician who'd spent 35 years running a small business 3 towns over. My dad sat beside him during a brainstorming session and interrupted the engineers when they got too technical. "Speak English," he said. "This guy doesn't care about data clusters. He wants to know if your app can tell him when his last customer payment came in without pulling out a binder." It was funny, and true. Later, I walked him to the break room and handed him a coffee. "You've basically become our translator," I joked. "Damn right," he said. "Someone's gotta make sure you don't build another fancy tool no one understands." That week, I added a quote to our company values wall, right below integrity, access, and vision. "Real innovation makes room for real people." He scoffed when he saw it. But I caught him taking a picture of it when he thought no one was looking. Outside of work, my parents had started doing things I never expected. They took weekend trips. Mom signed up for a watercolor class. Dad started attending entrepreneur mixers that Horizon sponsored, not to speak, just to listen. He'd stand at the back, arms crossed, soaking in stories from business owners 30 years younger, nodding along silently. Sometimes he'd whisper to me afterward, "Reminds me of when I started out. Just with fewer broken bones and more spreadsheets." He was changing. Or maybe, just maybe, he was unfolding into something he'd always had in him, but never had permission to show. Meanwhile, the team at Horizon expanded. Lexi was a star, people naturally followed her, and she had a knack for handling chaos. Darius launched a series of branding campaigns that took our user base from a few hundred to nearly 10,000 in 4 months. Olivia from Brightwell remained a trusted advisor, though now we were in talks to become investors ourselves. "I didn't think you'd turn into a rainmaker," she teased during a quarterly review. I shrugged. "I thought I just wanted to prove a point. Turns out I wanted to build something that lasts." Then came the email that made me stop everything. From a publication called Southern Legacy Weekly, a magazine my father had subscribed to for years, known more for barbecue recipes and farming advice than tech stories. They wanted to feature Horizon. Not just the company, but the story behind it. And they wanted both me and my father on the cover. I wasn't sure how he'd take it. But when I brought it up, his expression didn't twist into a scowl or shrug like I expected. He looked down for a long time, then said, "Tell them I'll wear the good boots." The photo shoot took place on a clear Saturday morning, right in front of our headquarters. I wore a blazer. He wore his pressed jeans and a button-down tucked into a worn leather belt. The photographer posed us under the steel Horizon sign, but it didn't feel posed. It felt natural. The headline that eventually hit newsstands? "Bridging the Gap, How a Son's Vision and a Father's Grit Are Reshaping the Southern Workforce." He bought 10 copies. Gave one to every member of his old crew. Not long after that, we held a town hall for Horizon's second year in business. This time, over 300 people showed up, clients, students, employees, neighbors. The line for coffee snaked through the building. The buzz was loud, proud. I took the stage with Lexi and Darius flanking me. Behind me, projected on the wall, was a collage of our partnerships, construction firms, cleaning crews, welders, farmers, tree trimmers. Each of them now using TradeTrack to stay competitive in a world that was moving fast. "We believe in access," I told the crowd. "We believe the future isn't just in Silicon Valley. It's right here, in the shops, on the lots, behind every pair of dusty boots that still puts in an honest day's work." I paused, then added, "We've stopped asking people to leave their past behind to join the future. Instead, we're building a future that brings the past with us." That was the moment I spotted him, my father, standing near the back, arms crossed like always. But this time? He was smiling. Later that night, I sat in my office alone, watching the river lights flicker outside. A knock at the door broke the quiet. It was him. He stepped inside, holding something wrapped in a weathered cloth. "I wanted to give you this," he said. I unwrapped it slowly. It was his first invoice. A handwritten receipt for pouring a driveway in 1986. $15, I murmured, reading it. "Labor and material. Best damn slab I ever poured," he said, voice thick. I stood up. "This is your legacy." He looked around the office, then at me. "No, son. This is." We hugged. Not a long one. But long enough. The next morning, I pinned that invoice on my wall, next to our signed Brightwell contract, next to the Southern Legacy Weekly cover, next to the quote he once muttered under his breath and now lived by. Real innovation makes room for real people. And as the sun poured through the window of a company built by a tech kid with dirt in his roots and a concrete man with code in his blood, I finally understood something. I hadn't won by proving him wrong. I'd won by making a future big enough for both of us. For his legacy. And mine.